In this short video tutorial, I will show you how I organize my finished master files, which are the processed photos. Usually I keep those in a separate file, which I call master. For example, here with my Germany folder, I have a raw folder where the raws go, and I have this master folder where I put the processed images, the Photoshop files. And if you process Photoshop files in 16-bit, as you should do, and you generate many adjustment layers, those files tend to get very big. For me, it was usual to have files for my full-frame camera which had like 1 GB or 1.5 GB in the end, when I had like 20 layers with masks and stuff on it. And what I found over the time is, as you process more and more images, this can clutter your hard drive a lot. And most of the time, I'll not go back to those images and change individual adjustment layers. I might go back to those images and say, for example, I want to reduce the changes I've made to the color a bit, or take out a bit of the contrast and get back a bit more to the image I started with. And so I changed my workflow for saving or keeping those images a bit. Maybe this is not for you if you're starting with post-processing, because then it's a good idea to keep all your layers for a time, because you will often want to really go back and change individual layers as you're learning. But as you progress with your post-processing skills and you know where you're heading with an image, you know when it's finished or close to finished, and then what you most of the time what you just need is a 2-layered Photoshop file, which in the end, if you look over here, it has 250 megabytes for this 21 megapixel image. And this is how I change the how I save the photos now. Let's head over to Photoshop. I just saved 2 layers. The first layer is the blended image. So for this image, for example, I had like, I don't know, 6 or 7 photos where I did focus stacking and exposure blending. And after I do these steps, I usually flatten the image, because this is a process I can repeat, and nothing I need to keep, because I won't change anything at the blending when I'm done. And this blended image is the start for my further post-processing, which I show in my start to finish tutorial. There I work on contrast, color, and little details. And finally I might reach at this image. The first step, you will see many adjustment layers here, but what I do then, I flatten the image, pressing Ctrl Alt Shift and E, and throw away all those adjustment layers. So I end up with those 2 layers, the final and the blended. If at some point in time I think, oh wow, maybe this is a bit too far, or I want to go further, then I can just either start with the final and put adjustment layers above, or if I want to go back a little bit more to the image I started, I could either just reduce the opacity of the adjustment layer, of the final layer, or if, for example, I like what I did to the color, but I think I went too far with the contrast, I just duplicate this layer, this final layer, take one of those and put it to the layer mode luminosity, and the other one I put to color. And now I have the color changes on one layer and the changes to contrast and all that stuff on the other layer. So I could now either just reduce the opacity of the contrast changes and still have the color changes, or could do the other thing, remove the color changes, have the contrast changes. Or I can put a mask on one of those layers or two of those layers, and with a black brush just paint in a bit. For example, if I thought I went too dark here, I just paint over it with a black brush, and if I went too dark here, paint over it, and so on. So you see, even just having those two layers, the blended and the final layer, we still have some flexibility if you at some point recognize that you want to change what you did. And so for me, this is how I save my master files now, and how I change a lot of space on the hard disk.